Afternoon tea, somewhere on the Aegean Sea. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the yummy of afternoon tea. Virgin Voyages Cruise Ship Edition. A couple weeks ago, I was on a Virgin Voyages cruise, mostly around Greece, and I had afternoon tea twice while at sea. As you know, I'll give you my star rating at the end. Starting with the good. Imagine my delight to discover our Virgin Voyage cruise served afternoon tea while at sea at Sip Lounge, which is a champagne bar on board their ships. And being the queen of afternoon tea, I had to make this a priority while sailing. The good here was the food and the ambiance. I had both tea for one guest, and then I dragged my husband back a few days later so we could have tea for two guests, and you'll see both of those on this review. The same menu was served on both days, and both days the tiers were in this wonky order. But that's okay because it tasted great. Let's get into it. Each guest got 3 finger sandwiches, a brie and pear, a radish and hummus, and a cucumber cheese round. And hello, there were 2 scones for each guest. More about those in a minute. Top it off, there were 5 sweets for each. The savory tier was pretty simple, but the other 2 tiers made up for it. They were very ample, so overall, the food was definitely the good aspect here, in addition to the ambiance. Moving on to the bad, the tea selection here was a little bit odd. There were very different flavors and there was no Earl Greys to be seen. However, it was loose-leaf tea in proper teapots with teacups, so I dealt with it. I was impressed that they had correctly called their offering afternoon tea rather than the colloquial high tea that is so frequently an incorrectly used term in North America. Tea experience on board is an additional $19 US per person, or $35 US if you want champagne, which my husband did. $19 was well worth the surcharge in my opinion. Third, I like to talk about the ugly, but absolutely nothing here was ugly. The room or the lounge, the food, the place settings, everything was lovely and pretty here in the Sip Lounge. Now, on to the yummy. Ahoy! There are 2 aspects here, sailors. First, I'm tickled pink to say that the scones were delicious. They were so buttery, and they were the main reason that I wanted to go back a second time with my husband so he could try them too. When I dined alone, I got 2 plain scones. But for our tea for 2, we actually got 1 plain scone and 3 chive scones. I feel like this missing second plain scone was just a mistake, but that's fine because I had already tried it my first time here. The scones were served with whipped cream and strawberry jam, but I asked for butter, knowing that the chive scone wasn't going to be good with either whipped cream nor jam. And if you've been watching this account for any length of time, you know that butter is always the answer. With all the food that this ship pumps out on a daily basis and not being an actual tea room, I wouldn't expect proper clotted cream to be served. So I'm not even mad about no clotted cream. And again, these scones were really good. Shiver me timbers, the sweets being served were surprisingly yummy too. Each guest got a rainbow cake, an ouzo macaron, a cream puff, a white chocolate-dipped palmier cookie, and a chocolate-coated cream madeleine. Okay, so these look like basic-level patisserie sweets, and I guess they are, but they are actually delicious. Sometimes super pretty desserts like these, like that rainbow cake especially, can be dry, because they're just meant to be pretty, but they were actually really tasty. The rainbow cake was actually orange flavor, which I really loved. The chocolate madeleine, again, so easy for a madeleine to be boring and dry, was delicious with a creamy center and a chocolate coating. And brace yourself, even the center of that macaron, being an ouzo cream, was very tasty. That doesn't mean that I want to see macarons on every afternoon tea tier, but this ouzo one was a nice change of pace. In fact, all of the sweets on this ship were delicious, and the ones served at this afternoon tea were as well. I was really quite tickled pink by the food served. In case you couldn't tell, overall my expectations were not high going into this, because this ship has a lot going on. How could their tea be any good? But I was actually blown out of the water by this tea experience. Overall, my Queen of Afternoon Tea rating is 4.5 out of 5 stars. I only ducked a little bit due to the odd tea selections and of course that missing clotted cream, and maybe one more savory to round off the savory tier would have been great. Otherwise, great job, Virgin Voyages. You've impressed me, and that's hard to do. Are you interested in having afternoon tea at sea? What looks yummy to you? Comment below to tell me. Follow for more Tea Talk content back on land.